Welcome to the Jaybe Show on Revolutionary Blackout Network. I am your host, James Fauntleroy. So good to see all of you here joining me. Today is March 30th, 2025. We got some stories to talk about and some conversations to be had. So good to see all of you joining me here today. Just to let you guys know, the Jaybe Show is every single Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can also find me on Thursdays for the Savvy and Jaybe Show. And you guys can find me on my channel for the Jaybe Font channel every Tuesday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Now, if you guys have not already, go ahead and like, share, and subscribe just to be able to allow us to reach more people, to be able to inform more people. Because how many channels do you know that's a network that discusses things from a Black left perspective? Not very many. So to help us be able to reach more people, please go ahead and do that there. Also, if you guys would like to join our mailing list, you can go to revolutionaryblackout.substack.com. So you guys can get email notifications whenever we go live, just like you did 20 minutes ago, those of you who are already subscribed. So thank you very much for that. Also, if you guys would like to, you guys can also email us any stories or any just words of encouragement. You guys can email us at revolutionaryblackout@outlook.com. So thank you very much for that there. So with that being said, we're going to say hello to people that's in the chat, people that are saying their salutations just for a few minutes, and then we're going to get into our stories for today because it's going to be an interesting one and one I'm going to be kind of fired up about. So be prepared. All right, so let's get into our visitors. Now, you know I can't read all this, Dennis. We on the tube right now. This is a family show. I can't read all that. But he said Trump is the white Obama. Just with, I'll leave that to you. Global, what in the world? Live mass media protest at Fox News and NBC Washington HQ. Interesting. A mass media protest at Fox News. My thing is, here's the thing when it comes to mass media and protests. I'm equal opportunity in my opposition to state stenographers, State Department stenographers, and, corporate mouthpieces. So if you're going to protest Fox News, good, do that. But have that same energy for MSNBC and CNN and New York Times and Axios and all these other different ones that are also speaking for the empire as well. I'm saying have the same energy for all corporate-owned outlets. Have the same energy. Now, I'm glad to see people protesting against corporate media, but you have to keep that same energy. And we got to get out of that binary thinking of red good and blue bad or blue good and red bad. We got to get out of that binary thinking because ultimately they all serve the oligarchs. But thank you very much for that. Hellfire Heart says, for the greater good. Yes, for the greater good. Thank you so very much. We got Crom coming in saying, peace, JB. Well, peace be upon you too. And also, by the way, to all my Muslim comrades and Muslim family and friends, Eid Mubarak. All right. Just wanted to say that too, from the heart. Let's go on to John Kemper, a.k.a. Blue Marble, a.k.a. Adam Bashir. Said Adam Bashir. Is that his name? Did I get his first name wrong? Anyway, you know exactly what I mean. John says, peace, love, and solidarity. Good to see you. We got Sheila coming in saying, love, peace. JB, thank you so very much. Appreciate it. Good to see you in here, Sheila. Sarina says, greetings, comrades. F. Elon, he's going after everything that's helpful to people. He's even trying to cut Sesame Street. Look, let me tell you something. I'm going to get in. I'm going to go in on Elon today. But a lot of these things that they're trying to cut are going to affect like a lot of these things that they typically try to cut affect the marginalized first, and then it affects the general population next. Um, Sesame Street was originally created to help with the development, the educational development of Black and brown kids in America. This is why Sesame Street was, when it started out, it was Black and brown all up and through it. It was blackity black and browny brown all up and through it. You saw the occasional like white people, but you didn't see them that much on Sesame Street in the beginning. Back in my day, back in the day, yeah. And so it's now become more universal, right? So that all kids of all stripes now watch it. But now they want to cut it because to them, it's like, it's not worth it. It's wild, man. It's wild on his face. Jane Smith says, peace. Good to see you, Jane Smith. CBC Voter says, happy Sunday at Jaybe. Good to see you. Terry Connolly says, peace, Jaybe and comrades. Good to see you. Bad Wolf coming in and saying, good afternoon, Jaybe. Good afternoon to Bad Wolf. All right. We have Kalimba Calm says, Noah, wake up. What's that from? I don't know. Good to see you. Polish Hammer says, Elon smokes weed on Joe Rogan. Tesla company executives lose their mind. Question his ability to lead the company. Elon does a Nazi salute twice. Tesla executives are quiet AF. You know what? That's absolutely correct. Because far be it from somebody like Elon to partake of a mind-altering substance on a podcast and then start talking about, whatever he's interested in. But for him to actually do a sage Hio on national television in front of millions of people twice. He didn't do it once. He did it twice, right? And people will look at it and go, oh, that's fine. The people in that, I'm going to tell you right now, all the people who were in that crowd, they should have stormed the stage. If he did that, they should have stormed the stage. Because what did our fathers and grandfathers and great-grandfathers die for in World War II? Oh, yeah, that's right. It wasn't really to defeat the Nazis. It was just to save face and then create a global hegemon that would basically dominate the world over. So that's really the whole reason why they actually were in agreement with going against World War II. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot. But yeah, thank you so very much. Katie Lewis, also part of the Orlando RBN chapter, as well as also has his own mutual aid program called Freedom Feeders Cooperative. Katie Lewis is in here, says, good to see you, my brother. Good afternoon, comrades. Good to see you in here, KD. And Dennis Neves. You know what? Look, if we're going to deport Elon Musk, I say we deport him off planet. I hear Mars is free. So I'll just leave it at that. And then hi, Myra says hi to Terry Connolly and John Kemper. All right, so we're going to get into this. What are we talking about this afternoon? Well, we got a couple of stories that we're going to get into, and one's going to be local and one's going to be national, but it's going to have an effect on many people. So let's get into it. So a little bit later in the show, we're going to be talking about incoming catastrophe. What is going on with Social Security? And why are so many people up in arms, including conservatives? Why are they so up in arms? And what can this mean? And as somebody who benefits from these programs, I have my 2 cents to add in. But first, story we're going to talk about is more censorship in Florida. As you can see, there is, defamation, the word defamation, as well as, a tool that is used by judges. I'm blanking on the name, but I'm a bit embarrassed by that, but it is okay. But we are going to be examining that potential more censorship in Florida. So we're going to get into that right now. Florida. A lot of times when things like this come up, the rest of the country just goes, oh, that's just Florida being Florida. They're crazy like that, right? Look at her governor. Look at the people who are arrested. Florida man, Florida woman. But one of my biggest fears about Florida, which is also can be one of my biggest hopes as well, and I'll get into that in a second, is that when Florida goes a specific direction, other states can potentially follow. Because Florida is one of these states where a lot of the states that are considered red states, they can take their cues from Florida, particularly Florida and Texas, right? They'll take their cues from them. Just like a lot of blue states will take their cues from California, New York, Massachusetts. For the most part, the red states take their cues from there. And so there's a story that came across my screen earlier that I felt it was important for us to get into. And it talks about defamation and the weakening of defamation lawsuits, or not weakening defamation, but more loosens defamation protections. And so we're going to get into that right now because this could possibly be a free speech issue further in Florida. Now, mind you, a lot of the people who are conservative, who are like, oh yeah, I'm all for free speech. If your team, red or blue, that, neither party is really for free speech, to be honest with you. But in the sense of, the Republican Party, headed by Ron DeSantis, he's definitely not for free speech either. And he's made that abundantly clear here in the state of Florida, especially when it comes to protests, especially when it comes to speaking out against, speaking out against the state in mass protest, right? So let's get into this. I just want to share this article really quick, and then we'll get into the definition of defamation. So this is out of Orlando Weekly. It says Florida House okays bill that loosens defamation protections, requires removal of certain online articles. The bill advanced with support from Democrats who said they've been targets of false information spread online. So let's get into this. It said the bill to loosen defamation lawsuit restrictions advanced to Florida House on Thursday with support from Democrats who said they've been targets of false information spread online. It says for 3 years, the Florida legislature has considered GOP-backed bills making it easier to sue news organizations for defamation, but this proposal is drawing wider support from Democrats, with Tallahassee Democratic Representative Allison Tant co-sponsoring the House measure. So every single time it's a bipartisan measure, a bipartisan bill, who does it screw over? Yeah, you're pointing at yourself, right? Right? Yeah, exactly. So this is the point, right? Because now it's saying, it's defamation against news organizations. You can see the slippery slope of where we're going, right? Oh yeah, it's slippery. Like Dawn dish soap all over a water slide. Like that's a slippery slope. Let's go. Let's continue. It says the Senate House proposals, SB 752 and HB 667, would compel news outlets to take down content from their websites within days of notification that the published information is false or outdated. Failure to remove the content would be open them to defamation suits. Now, let me ask you guys this. Who chooses if it is accurate or inaccurate? Because if somebody has corroborated sources, if they have actual facts in their reporting, if they have evidence to support what they're saying in their reporting, that's not defamation. But if they can just deem it as false, then they can say it's defamation. And next thing you know, have it forced to be taken down. And I say news organizations so enthusiastically because RBN is a news organization. We're not only mutual aid, but we are also a news organization. I have my own channel, which discuss news. You know, you have many different ones out here who are doing news. You have Nico House and Jamarl Thomas. You have Black Agenda Report, right? You have Danny Haifong. You have many different ones that are doing news. And if they're doing it, a story out of Florida, especially when it comes to either celebrity or politician, then this is potential to silence us. I live in Florida. It would be potential to silence me. Let's continue. St. Petersburg Democratic Representative Michael Rayner supports the bill, saying she didn't understand. I'm sorry, Michelle Rayner supports the bill, saying she didn't understand why the media would want to keep false information on the internet. I'm sorry, hang on. Wait. If we're going to talk about false information, let's talk about false information. You mean the 40 beheaded babies? Oh, if we're going to be able to sue for defamation, then I guess the Palestinians should be able to sue all the news organizations that spread the lie of the 40 beheaded babies or the sexual assault of Israeli women, which has not been documented, has not been corroborated, and has been found to be false. Right? If we're going to talk about it, let's talk about it. Or the narrative that has been pushed against countries that are democratic, but people say, oh my God, they're dictatorships. Like Cuba, Venezuela, DPRK, China, Russia. They'll be like, oh my God, they're dictatorships. They're totalitarian. Meanwhile, they have some of the most robust elections in the world. And so should they be able to sue for defamation? Are we going to do that? Because the thing is like, if you're going to do it for one, you got to do it for all, right? If you're going to take some of our autonomy away, if you're going to censor and silence our voices from being able to report on these things, especially when they're facts, then you got to stop lying too. But they don't. They don't. Oh my gosh. These people, they get on my nerves, especially when it comes to their hypocrisy. Quote, I've had people get on the internet and say atrocious things about me. Welcome to the club. Things that are actually not true. Welcome to the club. And I've said it, and I've had to sit here and say, well, can't do anything about it, Rayner said. And I'm a state representative lawyer. I can file my own motion to do what I need to do. The House Civil Justice and Claims Subcommittee advanced the bill unanimously with 4 Democrats in support, despite warnings it can amount to censorship. Like I said, who gets to decide what's true or not? Says the bill was inspired by the case of the Miami man who's accused of molesting a child, only to see the charges dropped. A TV station refused to request to scrub the story from its website. Sometimes innocence doesn't erase the fact that an arrest and charge occurred, says Bobby Block, executive director of the First Amendment Foundation. They may be inconvenient facts, but they are true. If we were to buy into this bill's logic, we could have to erase the O.J. Simpson car chase and every report on Casey Anthony from history. Says Barry Richard, a prominent Tallahassee lawyer who represented the Miami man, said the charge is necessary because of the prominence of the internet. Richard is married to Tant, the House co-sponsor. The proposal would allow suits for up to 20 years after the publication of an article. So they give this extreme example of a news outlet basically having to report that a gentleman was accused of harming a child, and they didn't scrub the story from their website. But the thing is that unfortunately, just like this guy said, that the innocence doesn't erase the fact that arrests and charges have occurred. The thing is that that's a difficult thing. At the same time, it's like there should be an amendment saying that this person has been acquitted. It should be updated in the story that this man has been acquitted of this, right? And if you are in a news organization and, you know, taking on a more journalistic role, then you have the duty to be able to correct yourself and correct the record. But at the same time, what if what you said was correct the first time? And they just don't like that you said was correct. Also, this makes me think, could this be related to Israel? The fact that we're speaking the truth about Israel. But could the ADL say, well, no, that's liable. That's defamation against the state of Israel. You can't say that. So now we're going to sue you. Me live on here saying that Israel is a settler colonial project that's committing a genocide and is also committing a 21st century Holocaust against the Palestinian people could be considered defamation against the state of Israel. Because by their definition, right? Oh, that's not what we're doing. So that's not true. So we're going to sue you for defamation. Now you see now, right? Where I'm going with this? Why I say this is concerning. The weakening of the or loosening the restrictions on a defamation. Because now you're making it so that news outlets, you know, of course, news outlets should have to be careful, right? At the same time, the question is, who gets to decide what's true and what's not? Remember that the United States House and Senate have voted on the definition of anti-Semitism, includes Zionism. So if you're anti-Zionist, then they assume that you're anti-Semitic. Meanwhile, there's a lot of Jewish people who are also anti-Zionists. I've had them on my channel before. Are they anti-Semitic too? And so they're using that to basically punish anybody that speaks out against a foreign state that has control of our government, not control of our government, but that has huge influence over our government, which the United States allows, and that they're committing a genocide in a 21st century Holocaust. So I'm just thinking about things like this. And also, when it comes to telling the truth against police officers, especially those of us in the Black community, because I'm going to tell you something right now. What always happens is when a crime happens, the police will always be the ones that are regarded as the honest actors in a situation. The suspect is always seen as somebody that's not to be trusted. Meanwhile, you talk to the people in the community, and they will tell you what really went down. You know what I mean? So, anywho, let's continue. It says Barry Richard, a prominent Tallahassee. Okay, we already went over that. It says if you now have a reason to know it's not true, you can keep it up. What if the public interest in keeping the story up for 7 years and ruining the person's life? It says Democrats' support for the bill has been more limited in the Senate, where only Roslyn Osgood of Broward County has supported it in committee. So, with that being said, I want to go over this because let's go over the legal definition of defamation. Because I want to go over the legal definition of defamation because it's not just talking shit, about somebody, right? It's more involved with that. And so we go over the legal definition. I want to stop at a certain point and just ask a couple questions, but let me share the screen really quick and we'll go over the legal definition. And this video is entitled Tort Law, the Rules of Defamation. So let's get into this.
The law protects people from many types of harms, including harm to one's good name and character. The United States legal system affords people the right to sue when false and defamatory statements have harmed their reputations. Let's first look at the elements of defamation. Defamation is a communication that tends to harm the reputation of another, to lower his estimation in the community, or deter third parties from associating with him. A statement is defamatory if it has a negative impact on someone's reputation among a substantial number of people in the community, even if the number of impacted people is not a majority of the community. Since these rules offer only general guidance, the determination of whether a negative statement rises to the level of defamation must be determined on a case-by-case basis. Every defamation claim, however, must meet the following four elements. A, it must be a false statement concerning another. B, the statement must be defamatory. C, there must be a publication to a third party. And D, there must be harm to the plaintiff's reputation. For a statement.
Okay, so the first one is a false statement concerning another. Who determines what's true and what's false? Because evidence will have to be shown in order to do that. And so, of course, there are people who have sources, and a lot of journalists can uncover their sources because they wouldn't be sources then. Because a lot of times there's some anonymity that has to take place in order for them to be able to actually disclose the news, because for fear of retaliation, right? And so it has to be objectively true of what is going on. I can say, like, and just like, this is why I go back to somebody saying, like, Nicolas Maduro is a dictator. Meanwhile, Venezuela has some of the most robust and thorough and accurate democratic processes in the world. And so, with that being said, is he really a dictator? Or is it that just defamation of a public figure from another country so that it can fit your pro-capitalist, pro-corporate narrative? And they get away with, oh, freedom of speech. I'm like, okay, fine. But that doesn't stop me from saying the same thing about Benjamin Netanyahu. But the difference, though, is I could actually back up with facts why Benjamin Netanyahu is a totalitarian jerk. I got to be careful in my language. I can back it up with facts. But news outlets run roughshod and say a lot of things about a lot of people, or they'll allow opinion news to say whatever they want about other people. And so a lot of these opinion news shows, they don't specifically say or give a disclaimer, this is an opinion news show. It'll be displayed as, factual, objective news. Remember Tucker Carlson when he was on Fox? Rachel Maddow? That was displayed as actual news when in reality, it was more opinion with some semblance of news around it. So, yeah. Let's get into the rest of this.
Statement to be considered defamation, it must be about the plaintiff. Even if the statement doesn't mention him or her by name, it can be actionable on grounds of defamation if a reasonable person would understand the communication as referring to the plaintiff. The statement must be communicated to a third party. If the defendant communicated a harmful oral statement about the plaintiff to his face with no one else present, or wrote a harmful statement which was never distributed, there's no defamation. In some cases, the plaintiff must show some degree of culpability on the part of the defendant. For example, the Supreme Court has ruled that if the publication involved a matter of public concern, such as, for example, large-scale fraud in government programs, it must be shown that the defendant knew or should have known that the statement in question was false for liability to attach. A completely innocent publication, in which the publisher had reasonable grounds for believing the report to be true, is not considered defamation in such cases. Some states apply the requirement of fault in all cases, while others allow liability for defamation even without fault, where the plaintiff is not a public figure and the statement is not a matter of public concern. The statement must allege something about the plaintiff which is considered harmful and which would very likely cause harm to someone's reputation. A statement that some people might consider a bad thing is not necessarily enough. For example, falsely announcing to a crowded room that a party guest is a Democrat or a Republican may be insulting or offensive in some contexts. However, it lacks the personal disgrace element that courts usually insist on for a finding of defamation. In one case, a plaintiff sued on the grounds that the defendant published a book which falsely claimed that he knew a junkie who was doing time in prison. The court held that while this association might reflect poorly on the plaintiff, it is not considered defamatory, since it does not actually accuse him of doing anything wrong. Libel versus slander. Libel and slander differ in terms of when a plaintiff can recover. Libel is defamation that is written or communicated to a large audience. In such cases, the plaintiff can recover even without having to specifically demonstrate that he has suffered actual economic harm. If the defamatory statement is the kind of communication which generally results in harm to reputation, the law presumes such harm and the plaintiff can recover. Slander.
So this goes into especially a lot of news outlets, ones that do written form. I know Katie Lewis is in the chat, and Katie Lewis also does independent media, and he does Substack articles. I do articles from time to time. And so the weakening of this could potentially be that they'll read something in some small article like mine, right? And say, well, this is liable because it's not true. But the question is like, who gets to decide that? Because if I'm sharing the facts, well, that's the facts on the ground. But at the same time, some people would say, well, that's not actually factually true, because they'll look at it, they'll spin it in a different way, right? It's like, for instance, the perspective of a person with a cat. If the cat comes there and there's a dead mouse and if it's holding a dead mouse, right? Then to that person, that's good, because that cat actually did a service for the household and got rid of that mouse, right? But to a family of mice, they just lost a family member. And so that to them, that was a murder. So it's like, you know what I'm saying? The victor writes the history books, as well as they write the narrative within the news. And if you have an oppressive system that is over the news, especially corporations, they will always slander the people who are the victims.
Is defamation that is not libel. In other words, it's not written or mass communicated. In such cases, the plaintiff must prove actual harm that's resulted from the impact of the slander on his or her reputation. In most cases, actual harm is shown through economic loss attributable to the impact of slanderous statements on business reputation. Courts have also allowed harm to be demonstrated by negative personal consequences of the statement. Examples of personal harm can be the loss of friends or a marriage engagement broken off due to the statement. There are some exceptions to this requirement of special damages, or damages that can be shown economically, when it comes to slander. Certain types of defamatory statements are considered so egregious in their potential to destroy a reputation that the plaintiff does not need to present specific evidence of harm. These cases are called slander per se. They include false statements accusing someone of committing a serious crime, of having a serious communicable disease, of unfitness to carry out his or her job, and of serious sexual misconduct. Each of these categories has evolved and must be viewed on a case-by-case basis. Defamation of public figures. It is common for defamation cases to involve public figures, such as
Actually,
politicians.
you know what? Let me go back to this. Slander per se says false statements accusing someone of committing a serious crime. How many times have people like me and many others in independent media have called people like Donald Trump, Joe Biden, and Barack Obama war criminals? And to them, they're not. But for all intents and purposes, they are. So if you're weakening the threshold for defamation, this means that they can actually sue anybody that says, well, you called me a war criminal. And according to the law, it's, false statements under slander per se is accusing someone of committing a serious crime. Right? Or the unfitness to carry out his or her job. How many times were we talking about the mental acuity or mental fitness, cognitive fitness of somebody like Joe Biden while he was in office? And now somebody can come after us and say, well, no, he was cognitively fit. Thing is, it's like, by whose standards? Because by an assured, agreed upon standard, which really is kind of an unspoken rule, like everybody could tell that he was cognitively deficient in being able to handle the reins of power within the executive branch. And yet, if this law passes in Florida, let's say Ron DeSantis, he starts becoming cognitively deficient between now and 2026, and this law passes, well, then they can say, well, no, that's slander. That's slander per se in the court of law. So that's the point. Anyway, let's continue.
Viewed on a case-by-case basis. Defamation of public figures. It is common for defamation cases to involve public figures, such as politicians, celebrities, and athletes. Since these people are in the public spotlight, they are likely targets of defamatory statements. At the same time, the law recognizes that it's critically important for the media and the public at large to discuss issues of public concern without fear of litigation. This often involves criticizing the people who have placed themselves in the public spotlight, sometimes in harsh and personal terms. To balance these competing interests, the United States Supreme Court ruled in the landmark New York Times versus Sullivan decision that there is a higher standard for defamation when the plaintiff is a public official. In Sullivan, a police official sued the New York Times for publishing an advertisement on abuses of civil rights protesters by an Alabama police department. Sullivan alleged that the ad inaccurately reported important details of that event. The court ruled that as a public figure, Sullivan had to show more than mere carelessness or negligence on the part of the newspapers. The court ruled that public officials must show actual malice on the part of the publisher of the defamatory remarks. Actual malice in this context means that a plaintiff must demonstrate that the publisher knew that the statement was false or at least acted with reckless disregard for the truth of the statement.
Okay, so now we're getting into more public figures here. And so you have a lot of the Democrats who said, well, we were the subject of misinformation. The question is like, what do they deem as misinformation? Because if I say something to the effect of I'm just using a national figure just for the sake of argument. If I say that Hakeem Jeffries supports genocide, is that a lie? Is that defamation? He literally supports a state that is committing a genocide against an indigenous people, which he fully is in support of. Is that malice on my part? No, I'm just stating a fact. But then he can say, well, that's malice because I don't think that that's genocide. And so weakening this would give somebody like a Hakeem Jeffries, like if this was done in, let's say, the state of New York, this would give somebody like Hakeem Jeffries the ability to be able to put a defamation lawsuit after, anybody who's operating in New York or any news organization that also broadcasts to New York. Like, for instance, those of us who are in independent media. And say, well, no, you guys are slandering me. Even though you're going by your opinion when in reality, the actual facts on the ground and by many human rights organizations have showed that this is literally a genocide. And so therefore, your support of the state of Israel tied to this is support of a genocide. Or we could say things like the police are engaging in free speech suppression. That would not be slander against the police, because they're literally engaged in the suppression of free speech. But to them, though, that they would be, no, we're just upholding, law and order. It falls flat on its face. And this is why the weakening of defamation requirements within the state of Florida could be a very slippery slope into censoring many of us, especially in independent media. Remember, this is a class war that's being waged, and you're using the government in order to be able to do it. And so a lot of us in independent media, especially those of us who are in left independent media, a lot of us are working class. And so therefore, it's easier to take us down in a defamation lawsuit than it would be a corporate media outlet. So I'm looking at this with a side eye.
This elevated standard allows for more freedom to publish without fear of litigation, which enables uninhibited, open debate on public issues, while still protecting public figures in the most severe cases of defamation. This requirement was later extended to all public figures, not just public officials. So the requirement to prove actual malice now applies when you're talking about professional athletes, actors, or even high-profile news anchors who wish to sue media outlets for defamation. Let's now look at defenses to defamation actions. A fundamental rule of defamation law is that truth is an absolute defense. If the alleged claim is true, then the publisher cannot be sued for libel or slander.
Hold up. Now, the question is, who chooses what's true? Because how many people will say things like, oh, well, DPRK is a dictatorship. And people accept that as truth, but just because people accept it as truth doesn't mean it's actually objectively true. Right? People will say things like, oh, well, Russia is committing imperialism because of the war in Ukraine. But is that objectively true, what they're doing? And so sometimes people will try to blur the lines and say, well, from my perspective, this is the truth that I see. When in reality, it's just alternative facts. It's inconvenient. It's inconvenient to see the objective truth. And so this is why it is important to be able to see the facts for what they are objectively. But the problem is that these outlets will have they'll have opinion pieces to try to sway people in a different direction. Why you think, so many people are anti-socialist and anti-communist now, even though that's a lot of what they said is not really the truth, because they painted a narrative.
There are also other important defenses to claims for defamation. The law recognizes certain forums as especially in need of protection from litigation to foster free and open discussion among the participants. For example, legislators and politicians debating public policy in legislative proceedings have absolute privilege, which protects them from defamation claims. Likewise, to protect the integrity and independence of the court system, statements made during judicial proceedings are considered privileged and cannot be targeted for defamation claims. Finally, communications between married couples are not subject to defamation claims. This is in line with the well-established principle of privileging conversations between spouses. Today, protecting one's reputation is key to ensuring success in many facets of life. Even though the threshold for making a successful claim of defamation is high, this area of tort law entitles a plaintiff to protection and damages in cases of reputational harm.
All right, so we basically got a gist of the definition of defamation, the legal definition of defamation. So I'm just gonna, conclude by saying, when it comes to, loosening the restrictions on defamation lawsuits, I see this as a slippery slope into putting the hammer down, especially on groups that are on the left, that are speaking out against the injustices done by our corporate controlled governments, whether they be municipal, state, or federal. And this can grow beyond the borders of Florida. This can go into Georgia, Alabama, Louisiana, Mississippi, South Carolina. It can grow from there. And so I say, I'm hoping that this does not pass the Senate, because you can be damn sure that DeSantis would sign this into law as soon as he can get a chance. Because, by the way, his wife, Casey DeSantis, is actually considering running for governor in 2026. And so, of course, he would love to be able to have this part of his arsenal against independent media that speaks out against him or his wife in 2026. So I'll keep an eye on this story for you guys, but this one's the doozy. All right, so go ahead and like the stream. Thank you so very much. Appreciate it from everyone. It is good to be here. It's good to see all of you so lively in the chat, by the way. Okay, so let me check on the Rumble side to see if we have any Rumble rants. Looks like we don't have any Rumble rants right now, but we will get into some of the chat, and that will include some people from Rumble. Okay, let me check on Rockfin. We're good on Rockfin. Okay, so let's get into the chat here. Let's go to, let's see. I'll say that for a little bit. Let me see. Jace says free speech for the capitalists, not the working class. Absolutely. It's rules for thee and not for me. Let's go. Yeah, that's what I meant to say. Slip and slide. Dawn dish soap on a slip. Look, let me tell you something. I can't wait. Because one day it's going to be summer. And I'm going to get myself nice and fit so I'll have a body yaddy. And I'm going to get a slip and slide. And I'm going to douse that thing in Dawn dish soap. And we're going to be slipping in and sliding. Oh, that's going to be so fun. I wonder if I can do one of those things where you have like a bunch of sprinklers around and then the water just like falls all over you while you're going through the slide and then you hit the water, boom. That'd be kind of fun. Anywho, but yeah, thank you so very much for that correction. Oh gosh, I'm so silly. Mouse says, I mean, lots of media orgs and commentators have gotten pretty loose with the truth and verification. It's been bothering me for years. Yeah. A lot of times, media orgs and commentators, this is what happens when part of me wants to blame the Telecommunications Act of 1996 and the deregulation and the, what is it called? Something doctrine, where they don't have to be objectively true, or they can't give like both sides. They can just give one side and just leave it at that. But these policies that have been carried out really are allowing for people to be, spread either misinformation or disinformation. And a lot of the misinformation and disinformation are really against what is actually best for workers. Like, for instance, a lot of times you'll have people talk about waste, fraud, and abuse within the Social Security system, we'll be talking about. But that's negligible compared to the waste, fraud, and abuse that we have within the Department of Defense. But they don't ever talk about the waste, fraud, and abuse from there. They'll talk about they will list certain people as terrorists or enemies of the people, when in reality they're the ones that are actually helping the people, namely like the Black Panther Party, right? Were they actually enemies of the people, or did the news media just tell you that? You know what I mean? The move bombing, displayed them as an extremist group when in reality they weren't extremists. And so, they're very loose with, actually telling objective truth. And part of that's because of the apparatuses that were dismantled in order to be more objective within the news. This is why you have, MSNBC that skews, liberal or neoliberal talking points, and you have Fox News that spews, conservative or neoconservative talking points. And there's no real objective truth. They either fall on one side or the other. And it's always from a pro-corporate lens. Like, for instance, on any one of these programs, or channels, outlets, when do they ever have an actual socialist or communist on to combat the narrative that the media is saying? When do they ever really truly interview us? Because if the goal is objectivity, then you wouldn't just get it from the corporate side. You will also get it from the anti-capitalist, anti-corporate side, or the anti-imperialist, anti-war side. But they don't do that. They'll do it from the same side, just different ends of that side. Eva says, are those Democrats bought and paid for by Floridian Zionists enjoying Southern Florida? Had to ask. Peace to the chat. Maybe. That might be it. Because it may be there, it could be some of these Floridians who are in support of Israel. It's like, yeah, you're in support of killing babies. And honestly, that's objectively true, because you're literally in support of a country that just last week 2 weeks ago, had the deadliest week for Palestinian children in history. And you're still supporting that regime, not regime, but you're still supporting that state. So yeah, that's true. But to them, no, that's slander. What? That's why, you always got to think about who benefits the most from this. Arcane Eclectic says, simple solution for folks, don't watch mainstream media. Yeah, a lot of people are running away from them right now, as we see. So absolutely. Hellfire says, the government is making it easier to censor us so that we cannot speak up against their corrupt ways. There is no limit to what they'll do. The measures we will take to stop us from rising up. Absolutely. Appreciate that. Let me see. Number 6 says, bourgeois democracy is a real dictatorship. Absolutely. Anisha says, the same old playbook. Blame Cuba, Venezuela, China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, etc., etc., etc. Yep. Yes, thank you very much. Shout out to my brother Jaybe. Thank you very much, CB Applejack. No, I am not dual streaming for this, and I think Nick should be back sometime this week. So I'm assuming he'll probably be back maybe Tuesday. Let me see. And then we'll do one more. Let me see here. Sorry, guys. I'm just trying to. Here's from the Rumble side. Says Benjamin Milikowski is his true name. Yeah, a lot of times Israelis will change their last name to make it seem like they're actually from the region, when in reality they're just Europeans. They're just Europeans. Crispy, the blind socialist, says, JB, are you familiar with the case of Texas versus Becerra? I live in Florida. I believe Florida has signed on to the suit. It is being framed as a trans rights case, but it also has huge consequences for disability rights. I am not familiar with that. Texas versus Becerra. I will have to look into that, but thank you very much for that, Crispy, the blind socialist. Roger said, damn, missed first half hour. When did he get into his first subject? 10 minutes into the show? 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. All right. So Bad Wolf says, those news channels defend themselves in court saying we are an entertainment show, not a news show. Anyone should know that they won. Yeah, I know Rachel Maddow and Homeboy, heir to the Swanson fortune, Tucker Carlson, they actually argued that in court, that they're more entertainment than actual news. Sheila says, Jay, be sure to keep us posted on transplant status. Peace, love, little brother. Thank you so very much. Sorry, it's in yellow, so I can't really see the emoji that well. But yeah, I will keep you guys updated on my transplant status. Look, I'm gonna be honest with you, because I'm on the list now. I can receive a call anytime. I can literally receive a call for the transplant office like while I'm live. Right? It's crazy. Like that's how that's how soon I can actually get it. Like I could get it today. I could get it later this evening. I can get the call tomorrow. I can get the call 3-4 o'clock in the morning. And as soon as if I approve of, the kidney that they're offering, next thing you know, I got to go. And I got 3 hours to get there. That's it. And then as soon as I get to the hospital, they prep me for surgery. That's how fast it happens. It happens fast. So the prep is the prep and qualifying for transplant. It's kind of a longer process, but as soon as you're on the list and you keep up with your numbers and everything, next thing you know, it's boom, 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 boom. It's just fast. So yeah, it's a very fast process. And then let me see. DOGE says, F the fascists, get them, James, stay strong, got you. Thank you so very much. Appreciate it. Appreciate it very much. You guys are being very, very kind. And then DOGE says, freedom of press, simple, GD it, same fight 1,000 times. I don't know what GD means. I'm bad with acronyms. I'm sorry. I'm not that good, but thank you so very much for that. Let me see. I think that's it for. Wow, you guys are chatty today. That's awesome. And thank you, Ziggy. Godspeed, James. Thank you very much. All right, so let's get in. Let me check the Rockfin. We're good on Rockfin. And I'm just going to check one more time for Rumble Rants. Nope, we're good. Okay. So let's do the patron shout out first, and then we'll get into the next subject. Okay. So shout out to the patrons on Patreon. For without you guys, we would not be able to do this brilliant work. We're not just a news organization, but we also encourage mutual aid in building dual power on the ground. Yesterday, I was actually at a fundraiser for Real Orlando. If you guys would like to, we actually did a show with them for the RBN Roundtable this past Thursday. It was an amazing, productive conversation. And so, they're doing things that, people like me and my chapter here in Orlando, the things that we want to do. And so it's a cooperation, it's a collaboration of love and wanting to help our fellow neighbors. And so you guys allow us to be able to do that. And also while informing the public about what is going on from an anti-imperialist, anti-capitalist Black perspective. And so we just want to thank you all for allowing us to be able to do this, because it has to be grassroots. And as you guys can see, RBN is grassroots. And so what we are trying to do is to not only keep you informed, but also help activate and encourage people to do more on the ground organizing and trying to build dual power so that we can actually have something better for ourselves. So I just want to give a big shout out and thank you to all the patrons on Patreon. And even if you're not a patron on Patreon, we thank you for your viewership and encouragement. So thank you very much for that. All right, so let's get into the next subject. I do not like this man. I do not like him at all, but got to talk about him. Okay, so incoming catastrophe. This is bad. This is bad. This is very bad. So there has been an article that recently came out about, and I don't know if you guys remember this, but I said, even if there isn't necessarily them cutting off Social Security for, millions of us, and by Social Security, I mean Social Security retirement and Social Security disability, even a delay in payments of benefits can be catastrophic to all of us. Catastrophic. It's happening. I think it's going to happen. And it's going to be bad. And it's literally the 30th. People who get their Social Security retirement and disability benefits typically get their payments on the 3rd. So that will be Thursday. I want you guys to keep your eyes peeled. Check on your disabled friends. Check on your elderly friends and family. Check on them. Because let me tell you, if they don't receive that check by the 3rd, catastrophe. Let's get into this article that recently came out. And this is because of Elon Musk and DOGE. It says changes coming for Social Security payments and direct deposit, what to know. So let me enlarge this just to make sure we are able to see accurately. It says the change comes as the agency plans to shutter dozens of Social Security offices throughout the country and has already laid out plans to lay off thousands of workers. So let's get into this. And why am I seeing Brooke Hogan? Anyway, it says changes are coming from the Social Security Administration surrounding direct deposits from many recipients or applicants. Multiple changes surrounding direct deposit are expected to take effect starting at the end of the month, which we're at now. So what do you need to know? It says what changes are coming for Social Security recipients. In an effort to limit fraudulent claims, the Social Security Administration will impose tighter identity proofing measures, which will require millions of recipients and applicants to visit agency field offices rather than interact with agency over the phone. People will no longer be able to verify their identity to the Social Security Administration over the phone beginning March 31st, which is tomorrow. And those who cannot properly verify their identity over the agency's My Social Security online service will be required to visit an agency field office in person to complete the verification process, agency leadership told reporters Tuesday. So here is what's so bad about that. So you're cutting off phone service, and then you're not allowing them to verify their identity, which, look, The people who start getting Social Security retirement are people who are 65 years of age and older. And so what if somebody is 75, 85, who has to verify their identity and they really don't know how to use a computer? I was with a patient. Was it what's today, Sunday? Well, on Friday. And he was on the phone talking to a loved one. That was a flip phone he had. He didn't have a smartphone. He had a flip phone. And this guy is what, in his maybe late 50s, early 60s? I have family members that don't know how to operate a smartphone, let alone a computer. And so you mean to tell me that the primary means they have in order to be able to contact the Social Security Administration, which is their phone, you mean to tell me you're cutting that off? And now they have to go to a field office, which you're cutting off a whole bunch of field offices. I'm going to tell you something right now. Here in Central Florida, the field office that is closest to me, if I needed to go to see Social Security and if I need to see someone there, let's say tomorrow's Monday, if I go there, especially without an appointment, just walk in, I will be there a minimum of 3 to 4 hours just to see somebody. This was pre-DOGE, pre-Elon Musk actually being part of the government. 3 to 4 hours, easy. And now, because of all these cuts, you think those lines aren't going to get longer? Because you go in, you get a number, you sit down, if there's room to sit down. If not, then you got to stand. And then you got to wait for that number. And you better not go to the bathroom. Better not go across the street to that 7-Eleven to grab something to eat. Because if they call your number, and guess what, chicken butt? You're screwed. Because they will skip over you and keep on going. It's crazy. It's crazy. Absolutely wild. So, it says the change will apply to new Social Security applicants and existing recipients who want to change their direct deposit information. So, let's say hypothetically you need to change your direct deposit and you do it after tomorrow. Guess what? It is going to be more arduous for you to do so. They're making it harder because they're kind of cut down on fraud. Priorities, right? It says, in addition to the identity verification change, the agency announced that it plans to expedite processing of recipients' direct deposit change requests, both in person and online, to 1 business day. Previously, online direct deposit changes were held for 30 days. Now, this is the only thing that I am okay with, right? Is the expediting processing of recipients' direct deposit change requests. That's the only thing I'm actually in agreement with. Like, it should not take 30 days to change your direct deposit. At the very most, it should take like a week. At the very most. Because you're just changing it from one bank to another, right? And I don't think it should take that long. But at the same time, you're also harming not just elderly folks who are maybe unable to use the internet, but maybe some disabled folks who are unable to use the internet adequately in order to be able to get their benefits, or if they need to change it, to a different bank or credit union to get their benefits, which could cause a big delay. It says more than 72.5 million people, including retirees and children, receive retirement and disability benefits through the Social Security Administration. Now, why are the changes being made? It says Social Security Administration is losing over $100 million a year in direct deposit fraud. That's from Leland DeDuke, the agency's acting commissioner. And he said Social Security can better protect Americans while expediting service. He said the problem with eliminating fraudulent claims is that the information that we use through knowledge-based authentication is already in the public domain. This is a common sense measure. You know what else is in the public domain? That signal chat. Dear God, my goodness, the incompetence. And here's the thing. Y'all more focused on, what is it, $100 million out of Social Security, which it sounds like a lot, but $100 million in the grand scheme of government, especially the federal government, is not really that much. Meanwhile, the Pentagon failed an audit, and it can't account for over $21 trillion. And you guys are focused on this money that you think that you're recovering that will help Social Security. Priorities, man. Priorities. Like, they're more focused on Social Security than you are in the Department of Defense. It's weird. Now, it says, are there concerns with making these changes? It says, retiree advocates warn that the change will negatively impact older Americans in rural areas, including those with disabilities, mobility limitations, those who live far from the Social Security Administration offices, and have limited internet access. This is from John Larson, representative, says the top Democrat in the House Ways and Means Social Security Subcommittee, said that by requiring seniors and disabled Americans to enroll online or in person at the same field offices they are trying to close rather than over the phone, Trump and Musk are trying to create chaos and inefficiencies at Social Security Administration so they can privatize the system. Up. Here is the point. If you show the agency is inefficient by making it inefficient, then you can point and go, see, it's inefficient. Therefore, we have to have this privatized because it's better to do it through the private sector than it is to do the public sector, because the public sector actually works because we have competition. Meanwhile, you're sabotaging it so that it can get taken over by billionaire and multi-millionaire profiteers, and they can make more money and exploit us. Don't forget that one of the BlackRock CEO wanting to privatize Social Security so that they can essentially be over those, billions of dollars in assets, and they can make more money off of us privatizing it. And we all know that when you have something that really should be a public good in private hands, what ends up happening? a lot of people who need that service end up suffering because they can do things like denial. They can change things on a whim. And then next thing you know, you're screwed. It says voters have flooded town halls across the country to question Republican lawmakers about the Trump administration's cuts, including its plans for the old age benefits program. It says, in addition to a group of labor unions last week sued and asked federal court for an emergency order to stop DOGE from accessing sensitive Social Security data of millions of Americans. Many Americans have been concerned that the Social Security Administration office closures and massive layoffs of federal workers, part of an effort by President Donald Trump and Elon Musk, Department of Government Efficiency, to shrink the size of federal government, will make getting benefits more difficult. Let me tell you something about how difficult it is to get benefits. Here is a rule of thumb that everybody and their mama knows who has been enrolled in Social Security. For the most part, if you try to get Social Security, disability especially, expect it to be denied the first time or even the second time. A lot of people have to get lawyers in order to be able to get approved to be put on Social Security. And that costs money too. And so it's already strenuous at best to be able to just get Social Security disability, right? But now you're going to make it even harder for people who really do need it to get it. And so you're making it so that people will end up dying trying to wait for it. Says Musk has debunked theories about Social Security and described the federal benefit program as rife with fraud and called it a Ponzi scheme, suggesting the program will be primary target in his crusade against government spending. You know, it's funny. He's more concerned with government spending going to workers, but he's not concerned about the government spending that's going to, his contracts. What about the government spending that we're giving to SpaceX? And also, is he trying to do a AI program too? Oh, but we can't. We shouldn't concern ourselves with that. But when it comes to money that goes to the poor and working poor and disabled, oh, that's a concern. It's always a concern when it means average people like you and me getting any type of public good. It's always a concern. But when it comes to Raytheon and General Dynamics and Lockheed Martin, they're good. When it comes to subsidies from Lilly and GlaxoSmithKline and Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson. Oh, they don't really think about that. When it comes to these big corporations like ExxonMobil and BP, who also get government subsidies, there's no concern when it comes to them. But your grandma, oh, we're concerned because she could be defrauding the government. Okay, I'm gonna say something extreme, and the opinions of Jaybe do not reflect the entire opinions of Revolutionary Blackout Network or any of its core members. But I'm gonna say what I'm gonna say. I don't give a shit if we're losing $100 million in fraud. I don't give a shit. If that's going to people who are kind of gaming the system a little bit, I don't care. If somebody's getting an extra $1,000 in their Social Security, which they shouldn't be getting, oh well, so what? That's that average person that you're getting. You know what I'm concerned about? I'm concerned about the $3.8 million that's going to Israel, where they have universal health care and free college. That's what I'm concerned about. Billion, right? I'm not talking about the $100 million. I'm talking about the billions of dollars that are being wasted on people like Elon Musk, that are being wasted on Peter Thiel, that's being wasted on Bill Gates, that's being wasted on these billionaires and their programs, which is really just to, grease their palms. I'm concerned with the trillions of dollars that's being lost in the military industrial complex that really could be going to us. There's no priorities in place for the workers. That's why we say this is a class war, because every single time you try to go after the corporations, oh my God, the precious corporations, we need this, we need them. But when it comes to the actual people, it's like, yeah, screw them. We don't care. They take too much anyway. Even though we're living on a poverty income. Anyway, let's continue. The plan comes as the agency plans to shutter dozens of Social Security offices throughout the country and has already laid out plans to lay off thousands of workers. The DOGE website says that leases for 47 Social Security field offices across the country, including in Arkansas, Texas, Louisiana, Florida, Kentucky, and North Carolina, have been or will be ended. These are red states. These are red states. They're shooting themselves in the foot. Yep. That's exactly what they're doing. These are red states. They're cutting off field offices, especially from rural communities. And they're saying, well, we're losing this money in rural communities. Hang on. I got a point I want to make. Let's continue. It says, however, the Duke downplayed the impact of its office shuttering, saying many people were small remote hearing sites and served few members of the public. Here's the thing. Many small remote hearing sites that serve few members of the community. So what? This is the problem when you have people that say, oh, well, we got to treat government like we run a business. It's not a business, it's a government. That's the problem. Y'all automatically think, oh, we got to run this like a business. The government doesn't make money, it doesn't earn money, it creates it. It creates the funds. It is a currency issuer. And if it operates at a loss, oh well. Because here's the problem. So now even though it's just a small few people, you're now dooming that small few people in that area from having a field office that they can access. So what if it's operating at a loss? It's still a public good. That's what it is. And you're saying, well, we're trying to cut out the waste. And that's like me saying, man, I gotta lose 50 pounds, man. And the first thing I do to help myself lose 50 pounds, and really the only thing I do is I clip my toenails. That's a few ounces off me. I feel better now. All that weight gone. We got to trim the fat, right? We got to trim the fat. When in reality, I get my ass on the treadmill. I get my ass out there walking. I lift weights. I do the things that I need to do, and I start eating healthy in order to be able to trim that 50 pounds off. Clipping my toenails is something that's negligible. $100 million, even though it sounds like a lot for us, that's negligible in the grand scheme of things when it comes to the federal government. And yet they're more focused on that $100 million versus the trillions of dollars that's going out of our government and going to these greedy ass military contractors, screwing over workers. Oh my goodness. So that's what's going on. And one of the things that I wanted to share is that this isn't a left or right issue. This is a up versus down. Because remember, wasn't it Joe Biden that actually wanted to cut Social Security? He admitted it. Even Obama was trying to cut Social Security until he was challenged by Bernie Sanders. So you see that it is bipartisan, right? Because they're so concerned with the debt. When in reality, the debt is really just all the money that's in circulation within the United States anyway. It's not really a debt per se. It's really just money that's in circulation. And if they really wanted to recover some of that money that's in circulation, then they would tax the rich for hoarding some of that wealth. But they don't, right? Because they're the job creators when they really don't create jobs. Really, the people who create the wealth in this country are actually the workers. But anyways, I digress. There is some outrage that's happening among a lot of people. I'm going to start off with this. So there's a congresswoman by the name of Victoria Spartz, and a lot of her constituents are actually speaking out because they're seeing their Social Security about to be cut. And a lot of these constituents are actually conservative. Let's get into it.
Let's go. We'll get a mic to you in just a second, sir. Thank you for being patient.
Walk out!
We have
Solidarity. Walk out! Walk out!
He's telling everybody to walk out from that town hall. That's how pissed off they are. Walk out. Let's continue.
Get out! Tell them
Okay, we have a question.
Walk out!
We have a question from
Walk
William from
out!
Westfield.
Walk out! Let's go!
Okay.
Walk out!
Look, working.
Just a little bit, sir.
I can tell you this, that I would not be standing close to the Congresswoman because she's going to get hit by lightning for all the lies that she's.
Okay, I'm just they left a caption for us. So that guy got on the microphone and said, I would not be standing close to the Congresswoman because she's going to get hit by lightning for all the lies she told. Ooh, brutal. And look, you guys are allowing for people like Trump and Elon Musk to cut a vital lifeline, economic lifeline for millions of Americans. You don't think there's not going to be a backlash, even from the conservative side? I said it before and I'll say it again. Between October of this year and January of next year, about 30% of Trump voters are going to turn on him. 30%. Because they're going to see what we saw. Not what liberals saw, but they're going to see what we on the left, on the actual left, they're going to see what we saw. They're going to see what we see. And then they're going to realize, oh, we're getting screwed by these guys. They're no different than the Democrats. Let's continue.
But this is graph from Congressional Budget Office. Actually, a lot of Democrats don't like, and Republicans don't. So if you don't like, and actually, listen, CBO is not perfect, but if we wouldn't have CBO, the country would completely run wild, and we would completely bankrupt the country. So actually, Congressional Budget Office right now, that's what the graph are. They don't.
So that was one instance where they were walking out. Now, there's more. But wait, there's more. Let's get into this one. This one is out of Wyoming. And this one's going to be interesting too. So this is Representative Hagman, who took Dick Cheney's seat. So we're going to get into this. Even in they're turning up.
Security. And even with reconciliation, we are not allowed to touch Social Security. So I would request that you actually watch at some accurate TV and read valid news, because that is untrue. In terms of Social Security, President Trump has repeatedly stated that he is not cutting Social Security. It is not in reconciliation. It is not part of the CR.
So when she said that President Trump is not going to touch Social Security, they're like, bullshit, you're a liar. And she is absolutely lying, because that's exactly what's happening right now. I literally am just reporting it now. Because if those payments are delayed, it's going to be catastrophic. It's going to be catastrophic for millions of Americans. Because even a delay in payments of benefits is going to be catastrophic. Now, this one, a lot of people have played already. But, you know, we can play this here. Oldie but goodie. Not that old. A few weeks. But let's get into this. And here's a veteran standing up and getting pissed off, rightfully so, and expressing his right to free speech. Let's get into it.
You're lying. I'm a veteran. You don't give a fuck about me. Shut the fuck up.
You're taking away my Social Security. You're taking away my Social Security. See what happens when you go after a really popular universal program? It's semi-universal because it only applies for either disabled people or people above a certain age. But it is a universal program among people who are disabled and among people who are above a certain age. Can you imagine if we actually had universal healthcare? See, they literally have to do death by 1,000 cuts in order to make it seem inefficient. But even if they start doing death by 1,000 cuts, it's still popular. And they want to take it away. They want to take away Medicare. They want to take away Social Security. What's next? Veterans benefits? They're trying. They really are trying. Let's continue. Now, hang on. Since when does yelling constitute police coming in to kick you out. Since when does that constitute that? I thought that we have free speech rights within this country. We just got finished talking about it. So if you want to confront your congressperson and even use some vulgar four-letter language, free speech, right? But somehow, oh my goodness, the scaly veteran using four-letter words and screaming or being very passionate, that's something that we have. Police, you got to get them. You got to get them out of here. If you're stepping on my foot and I scream, ow, am I at fault for screaming, ow, because of you stepping on my foot? This gentleman has every right to be as angry as he is and expressing himself the way he's doing. He has every right. Now, he probably may be a conservative, and we probably don't have a lot in common. But one thing I will say is that he's a worker, and if he's getting screwed over, that means they're going to do the same thing to me, and vice versa. This is ridiculous what they're doing to these people. And by these people, I mean myself too, because I'm also a Social Security disability recipient. They said, what happened to free speech?
I deeply value the contributions that
Just to be clear,
make
bullshit, and you're
Hi,
not
Tom.
telling the
every
truth.
day.
You're not listening.
Let him speak. Let him speak.
For example, folks at the National Weather Service.
Oh yeah, and they fired most of the national. Not most. I'm misspeaking. They fired a chunk of the National Weather Service. And for those of us that live in the great state of Florida, yeah, this is going to be a rough hurricane season. Now, I think I got one more that I want to show. These and the reason why I'm showing conservatives is because this shows how popular Social Security is among conservatives. So if it's popular among conservatives, it's popular across the country. So if you try to cut Social Security, oh, you're screwing yourself over. So here's the last one. And this one, so somebody who actually helps people speaks out first. And then somebody who actually works for the Social Security Administration also confronts this congressperson. It is beautiful. So here we go. And I'm going to read the caption first, and then we'll get into this video. So this is out of More Perfect Union. It says, at a heated town hall with his constituents, Representative Mark Alford out of Missouri faced backlash for supporting DOGE's cuts to veteran services and Social Security. He spoke over attendees and later assured fired federal workers, God has a plan and purpose for your life. This is bullshit. Let's get into this. This is, he gets eviscerated, y'all.
And we have Rebecca Reinhold from Leavenworth, Kansas. Is that you? Okay. She says, The veterans are hurting. Why aren't you helping? Okay. So I am on the Appropriations Subcommittee, which oversees the Veterans Affairs, and we're going to be making sure that we have the appropriate funds.
She said that 1 in 3 federal employees are veterans. And you're cutting them off from protection. 1 in 3, a third of federal employees are veterans. This country is so cooked. This country is cooked, fried, braised, fricasseed, blackened. This, oh my gosh, it's burnt. It's burnt. That's how cooked this country is. Oh my gosh. It's grilled. It's broiled. Let's continue.
For veterans, right?
For their jobs the next day.
Yes.
We make sure that our veterans are cared for.
Yeah.
From the moment they become a veteran to when they're leaving.
Well, I care very much for veterans, and the recent cuts that were made, I think, to the Veterans Commissions, the new administrator,
not the hardworking federal
the new administration, officially they just took over that time.
Ooh, basically calling him a swamp monster. Ooh, to his face.
Make sure that American knew that the cuts that were made to the VA were not in a position that would affect services. So I do believe that veterans and helping veterans.
Oh my goodness. Let me tell you something. So as far as cuts to the VA, now, I know somebody that's inside the VA that works for the VA. They have been on a hiring freeze for a long time, including during the Biden administration. And so many veterans are frustrated with the VA because the VA takes forever just to administer vital services for those veterans because of the cuts that they made, which affect veterans' health. And so you mean to tell me, oh, well, it didn't cut vital services for veterans? You're lying. Go ahead, ask veterans right now. It's sick. It's sick. Here's the issue. You're literally using these people to advance a corporate agenda around the world where they are maimed, where they are they are made disabled, where they have to suffer PTSD and all manner of different ailments. You use them to advance a corporate agenda, imperialism around the world. And then when they come home, you continue to throw them away. Even though you use their bodies, you use their minds, you manipulated them to think that they were actually fighting for this country and the ideals, when in reality, they were fighting for people to have bigger dividend checks who are millionaires and billionaires. Ask somebody, talk to veterans. Some of them will tell you that they were out there just to guard oil fields on land that wasn't theirs. And they're literally losing their friends, they're losing their buddies, they're losing their fellow soldiers because they have to defend an oil field from natives whose land that they're actually occupying. And if it's the natives' land, let's say it's the Afghans' land or the Iraqis' land, then that land also means that that's their oil, not yours. And yet you're trying to keep them from it on behalf of ExxonMobil, on behalf of BP. And then they get damaged because you placed them in harm's way. And now their main bruised, broken. They have PTSD, they have nightmares in their head. All because you said that was actually to protect our interests, when in reality it's to protect the interest of corporations who don't even give a shit about us in this country. And then when they come home, you decide to throw them away even more, to add insult to injury, to put salt on the wound. This is why they're mad. This is why they're pissed off. And the disability they would get, the Social Security that they may get, is being cut away from them. The veterans benefits that's owed to them is being taken away, being stripped away from them. Cut after cut after cut after cut. All because you guys say there's waste of fraud and abuse in the government, so we're going to cut it away from the people who actually help the government to stay in power. Because you lied to them. You sold them a bill of goods. And now they suffer. While you sit in your ivory towers, in your comfy air-conditioned offices. When some of these soldiers, when they come home, they can't even sleep in a bed because it's too soft. Because they've been so used to sleeping in the harsh conditions, and sometimes they stay on the floor. And then they have survivor's remorse because they lost their buddies out there. They lost their fellow soldiers out there, their friends. And so some of them are regretting that they didn't die. And you want to throw them away. Like a useless piece of, like a used piece of tissue. These politicians are monsters. Both parties, monsters. Dear God.
I'm on the PA Military Construction Subcommittee for the appropriations. So we're going to make sure that our veterans are supported.
Oh, so you're literally one of the people as to why the veterans are as screwed as they are now. Here's your guy. Oh my gosh.
We were just at the Missouri Veterans Home, nursing home for veterans, and we were there on Valentine's Day. We sit down and talk to 100 of them and spend an hour there. So I have the greatest respect for veterans and supplying them the needs. If you'd like to write that down on a card like everyone else, you're welcome to. Caitlin, hey, where is Caitlin? Caitlin says the total savings. I don't see this in the form.
Social Security. I work for Social Security.
She works for Social Security. Administration is a 50-year staffing.
We are at a 50-year staffing low.
Hang on. Wait. Let's let the lady hear the lady one more time.
Staffing.
We are at a 50-year staffing low.
50-year staffing low. Meaning they are operating on a skeleton crew right before DOGE ever became an actual department. 50-year staffing low. And that means that they're operating on a shoestring budget already. And you want to cut off more people, more federal workers, because apparently these average people are just, they're living a little too high on the hog. They're living a little too good. Oh, that crumb that they got, cut it in half. Make it a half a crumb. That's the problem. 50 years staffing low, and you're talking about, oh, we need to make this more efficient. Remember what I said? 3 to 4 hour waiting time at minimum at the office that's local to me. At minimum. We should have, really, to be honest with you, 2 or 3 more offices just in this area to accommodate all the people. Because to be honest with you, I don't think you should have to wait more than an hour to be in the Social Security office. And yet, 3 or 4 hours, that's not enough. Oh, we're going to cut off the people's ability to be able to phone call, to be able to confirm their identity and things like that. We're going to cut off phone service so that even though people are very elderly in their 80s and 90s who still get Social Security, well, even you guys need to learn how to use the internet. That it's sick.
Oh, okay.
Year. There is one of me for every 1,600 of you. Yeah. I'm going to get 45 of you in one day.
And people, why are you allowing someone with no security clearance? I didn't see. Are you talking about Elon Musk?
I'm going to answer your question. I'm talking about
Elon Musk does have a security clearance.
No, he does not. Security clearance to you. With your benefits. You didn't have to do shit. Mr. Albert, 176 people.
This is kind of a repeat question. Karen says, why is an unelected person allowed to hire, fire, and
He said 176 plane crashes. That's how many people are waiting for Social Security benefits. And they're denied. And they die waiting for those benefits. People literally die waiting for benefits in this country. And because the process is so slow, so dragged out, so convoluted, filled with red tape, that people literally die waiting. Because some people, they're so disabled that they really can't work. But somehow, they will block and obfuscate people's ability to be able to get disability because to them, they're not disabled enough. And so then they end up dying in the process. And it's sick. Thousands of people dying because they can't get their disability benefits.
I'll take one of these. Where's Karen that asked this question? Karen?
We don't have the staff.
Thank you, Karen. Karen says, why is an unelected person allowed to hire, fire,
and I provide critical services to people. You cannot cut my job without hearing from me.
I just want to give my applause to those 2 ladies because, yeah, it's like you're not going to take our benefits away without hearing from me, without you hearing my voice. And yet, he kept talking over her, not wanting to hear what she had to say. 30,000 people a year die for waiting for disability benefits. 30,000 people. That's 10 9/11s a year. 10 9/11s a year. That's basically a 9/11 every single month until you hit November. Each year of people that die waiting for their benefits. Those are sons, daughters, mothers, fathers, children, parents, grandparents that may not be old enough to receive Social Security retirement. These are kids, little kids that may be disabled, but they don't want to give it to them because, oh, they're not disabled enough. And so then they fall through the cracks. How many people can actually afford an attorney to be able to collect Social Security benefits, disability benefits? How many people can afford an attorney to do that? I'm lucky because I have chronic kidney failure and they allow for an automatic approval for people with chronic kidney failure. But there's a lot of people who have other disabilities and they're completely denied over and over and over. And then they don't have enough money to be able to have housing. They don't have enough money to have food. They can't just go out and get themselves an education because a lot of them don't have housing to be able to get an education anyway. And this is the catastrophe. This is the catastrophe that we talk about. And this is a war on workers. This is a class war that they're doing against all of us. And so I want to make it abundantly clear that neither party is on your side. And if you are a conservative that voted for Donald Trump, I want you to realize that he was never on your side too. There has not been one policy decision that he's made where it has positively affected the concrete material conditions of workers right now. Tariffs is not going to help us because the price increase because of tariffs is going to be passed on to us. The price of food still up. The price of fuel still up from what I hear. Rent still high. People are paying more interest on their mortgages. People are paying through the nose healthcare. Back in the day when I was in my 20s, you could pay maybe $50, maybe $60 a month for by yourself. Now I'm hearing today you have to pay $300, $400, $500 just for by yourself. Not a family plan, just by yourself. This is why we have to organize. This is why we get together and build dual power. Because this is unsustainable. And people can go, well, this wouldn't have happened under Harris. It definitely would have. Because she was embracing a lot of the right-wing policies when she was running. And that was her trying to look good in front of people. You don't think that she would have been even worse? I'm not saying she would have been worse than the Republicans. I'd say she would have been worse than what she displayed herself as while running. And so it wouldn't have helped us if either party won. So this is why I call people to action to organize, because There's so many people out there that are going to be hurting even more in the next few months. And this is why it's best to get to know our neighbors, start learning different things. Yesterday, I was at the Real Orlando. They had a fundraiser for their headquarters. And they did things like teaching people self-defense techniques. They also were teaching people how to make their own strawberry jam. That looked pretty cool. They taught us how to make jewelry from recycled materials. They taught us how to make our own tea. We actually went to their farm and picked our own leaves for their tea. I had a rosemary hibiscus tea because I picked the rosemary myself and I picked the hibiscus myself. And I made it, I put it inside of a tea bag and I made a rosemary hibiscus iced tea. It was brilliant. It was so good. We even learned how to, well, I already knew how to do this, but how to make a flavor infused simple syrup. It was with lemongrass. By the way, the tea that I was drinking, it was sweetened with that same lemongrass infused simple syrup today. Thanks, Leela. And so we're teaching people how to come together as a community and help sustain ourselves. And so could this be something that you could be doing? I hope so. I hope you come together more with your community so that we can help each other survive. The Black Panther Party did survival programs. Can you? By the way, congratulations to Real Orlando yesterday. They were able to raise $5,000 for their goal. So they're about halfway to their goal right now before they're able to get an HQ. And so I just want you guys to realize that we save us. These politicians are feckless. They're not going to do a damn thing for us. Neither conservative nor liberal. They're not going to do a damn thing for us. We have to save ourselves. And I'll keep hammering that home. And I'm going to stand 10 toes down on that. That's why we tell you guys to do mutual aid and get out in the streets and get together with your neighbors and get to know your neighbors. Start just like saying, hey, I'm your neighbor. My name is, you know, things like that. Because in the end, we're going to need each other to fight against these oligarchs. Go ahead and give a like to the stream. Thank you so very much to all of you for this segment. I'm going to check to see if we have any Rumble rants on Rumble, and then we'll check the Rockfin, and then we will continue. All right, so just checking to see if we have any Rumble rants. Looks like we're good so far. And then we'll get to some Rumble chats in a little bit. Let me check on the, yep, we have a few Rockfin chats, so let's get into that. And then we shall continue on. All right, so let me share my screen. I'm going to be ending on time today. Oh, good timing. Okay. Thank you very much. Roger Meadow says, Jay, all jokes aside, you and we all in the chat are going to have to break out and exercise those mutual aid muscles and start helping people with Social Security online service. I agree with that, Raj. I agree. I told this to my mom a couple weeks ago. Consider this moment to call to arms. Jay, you will be okay. You are computer savvy, but help mom. I already do. I already do. But I hear you. I hear you, Raj. I hear you, Raj. All right. Continuing on. It says, so for those who live in rural areas where they can't get internet access, mutual aid to drive them to the Social Security office wellness check. Ooh. I see the hamsters running in a wheel inside your head, Roger. I see a good idea. Because some of you go out to the rural areas for the elderly and disabled and help them get to the Social Security office so they can actually get their check, so they can get their benefits. Help them out. Talk to them. Ask people what they need. Good idea, Roger. All right. I love it. I love it. So it says, James, you were talking about the general welfare being the #1 job of government. Bring up the 18 enumerated powers. What is the first one? Say Google Article 1, Section 8, Clause 1. What does it say? Now Google and read the preamble. Then show the audience members what they all say about general welfare. So, 18 enumerated powers. Google Article 1, Section 8, Clause 1. Hang on. Let me see that, because that sounds interesting. All right, Roger. I see where you're going with this. All right. Okay, so Article 1, Section 8, Clause 1. It says, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 1 of the U.S. Constitution, known as the Spending Clause, grants Congress the power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and exercises to pay debts and provide for the common defense and general welfare of the United States, with the condition that all duties, imposts, and exercises must be uniform throughout the United States. So that you were talking about the preamble, right? Okay. So thank you very much for that. All right. So let's go to back to the chat. Said now Google and read the preamble. The preamble to the Constitution, of course. Yes. You know, I was never taught to memorize the preamble of the Constitution, but I was taught to memorize the beginning of the preamble of the Declaration of Independence. I don't know why we never went up with the Constitution when I was younger. Anyway, okay. So here is the preamble, and then so here's what the Constitution says. It says, we the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our prosperity, do ordain and establish this Constitution of the United States of America. So that's to promote the general welfare. The general welfare, maybe people look at me weird for saying this, but general welfare be food, clothing, housing, shelter, utilities, transportation, education, right? And why was it that we stop at certain level? Like, for instance, for education, why do we stop at high school? Why don't we continue that duty beyond high school to, let's say, 4-year college? Could we go to graduate school? It's like, if that's part of the general welfare of the people. It says now talking point arguments when vote ladder blue Kamala stands come to you, shame you because of what Trump administration is currently doing, all because you didn't vote for Kamala. Now remember this, you got to use this family. So pay close attention. I want you all to save that for when someone who voted Trump didn't win because I didn't vote Kamala. Trump won because you ain't vote Stein. Roger Meadows says Wyoming doesn't allow voters to place amendments on the ballot because they do allow them to place laws on the ballot. They can abolish qualified immunity, which means that guy who got kicked out could sue the police department and a politician for violating their First Amendment right. He did not step to the politician, which will require the police to step in. I encourage abolish qualified immunity, yell at your politician, get removed by the government that we call the police, and then get rich by suing these two. Then use that money to launch a citizen ballot initiative amendments and run independent candidate. Now that's what Nader did when he sued corporation for endangering consumers and the environment. It is the tail side of having a candidate funded by corporations, just not the traditional way. Instead of giving them to you, you took it, then beat them over the head with it. RFK said that he's against Medicare for all. Yet, I couldn't get anyone to ask him as HHS secretary would he be willing to grant waivers to states to pursue their own single-payer program. However, I see that he is willing to do that for those who wish to get a crap out of food and seed oil, metals, corn oil, and syrup, petroleum. So here's an idea. CBI, Citizen Ballot Initiative, single payer, and getting the crap out of your food in the same initiative. So this is from a tweet from Holding Kaluta. Today, Kennedy revealed that the big food CEOs told him they're scared of me, but they're more scared of state governors because they said, tell us what you want and we're going to do it, but stop these governors from passing these laws because we don't want a patchwork where West Virginia and California are banning food dyes and we have to make special products for those states. They're terrified of this. What you're doing. So that's interesting, Raj, because here's the thing. Yeah, I mean, I'm also against all these additives in food. And so if you can incorporate that into having an actual universal healthcare plan, I'm all for it. It says also for the subject at him with Social Security. That's why I say take any federal program and emulate it at state level. Run a citizen ballot amendment for a public bank to take surplus to cut checks for the state Social Security. To close the gap between the federal Social Security and the cost of living in your state and municipality. They killed the CFPB, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Run a citizen ballot amendment to have the state version of that. What RFK said, and when he said force these companies to make exceptions in the state, that state disrupts their uniform national corporate operation. What I've been advocating for the last 3 years, I guess. You're enforcing antitrust without using antitrust law. This completely F's up their whole framework and operations. Repeat, with all other industries that they have monopolized and oligopolized. The end. Screenshot DM. Okay. Very interesting. But yeah, there's also ways around it. Okay. And I'll read this and then we can continue on. It's just All right. So the 18 enumerated powers, also known as the express powers, are listed in Article 1, Section 8 of the U.S. Constitution, granting Congress specific authority, including the power to lay and collect taxes, borrow money, regulate commerce, coin money, and more. Here's a breakdown of the 18 enumerated powers. Lay and collect taxes to provide for the common defense and general welfare of the United States. Borrow money to borrow on the credit of the United States. Regulate commerce to regulate commerce with foreign nations and among the several states and with the Indian tribes. Coin money to coin money, regulate the value thereof and foreign coin. Establish post offices to establish post offices and post roads. Thank you very much for that, Roger. Appreciate it. All right, so great ideas, great ideas. Let's continue on in the chat. I hope I didn't miss any super chats because I was busy talking. Just trying to make sure I don't miss anything. I'm just gonna have to go over super chats, guys, because due to the sake of time, I have a meeting and got to get to that. And I don't want to be late because I'm trying to be better. I'm trying to be better. Okay, those are start. Good. Okay, I think we're good. I think I got all the super chats. Just making sure that I don't miss anything because, you know, I don't like for people to miss anything, especially if they put their hard-earned money. You know what I mean? Because you guys, you know, support us, and I want to make sure that I get to those. And if, you know, due to the sake of time, because I literally have to be in a meeting in like 7 minutes, so I have like 5 minutes to finish. All right, so okay, I think I'm. Whoop. Hang on. Wait. I just passed something. Damn it. I hate when that happens. You pass it too fast. Okay. I think. Sorry, guys. I'm just trying to make sure I don't miss anything. Okay. I think. Okay. There. Oh. Well, I already got that one and that one. I think I got it all. Okay. All right. I think I'm good. Okay. All right. So let's go into the super chats and then we can we'll head on out. So oh, that's a really good point. I want to bring that out, but it's not a super chat. Let me read it real quick. Polish Hammer says, in 1986, Reagan gave 3 million immigrants amnesty and a path to citizenship. So a Republican president can treat immigrants humanely. Trump just chooses not to. Well, it's the same thing. Biden and Obama and Trump, they all, you know, chose not to treat immigrants humanely. This is why, you know, there's such an outrage right now. And the thing is like Barack Obama actually deported. That's why they call him the deporter in chief, because he deported more people. But he's also one of the people. He was also the person that built those cages that Trump was utilizing as well. Said Canada should annex the 3 states it already provides power to. Call the states Canada plus, and the states would do it too for the healthcare alone. Yeah, thank you very much for that. Let me see. CEB Applejack, thank you very much for the super chat. Says, get out in the streets and take back your country. We're all the same class. Forget politics. We have to shut down vital jobs and strike. Stand up. Yeah, we actually talked to Chris Smalls and Afeni the other day, last week actually, when we talked about a general strike town hall that they were doing. So that is something that is one of the last ditch efforts before we get rowdy. I'll put it that way. Chima Madhu says these racist free speech hustlers are too busy attacking Black people, China, and immigrants who get crumbs to actually challenge their government. I'm hoping that they wake up. I'm hoping that they wake up. Thank you so much. So Lauren, who gifted 5 Revolutionary Blackout channel memberships. Thank you so very much. Clap it up for Lauren. Thank you so very much. And then Diogene says, F the fascists. Get them, James. Stay strong. Got you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it very much. All right. Now, I think we're good. Yep. I'm going to head on out because I got to go. But Roger in Ruffin says food dyes like red 40, blue 1, yellow 5 that you find mostly in candies are petroleum based. Had to give up jelly beans. I hate that. Yeah. Oh man, the good jelly beans, especially the Dillon's candy store jelly beans. Oh my gosh, especially like the pineapple flavor. So good. But yeah, I know. Anyway, thank you very much to everybody for tuning in. And hopefully you guys have yourself a great day. Thank you very much on my approval on being on the kidney transplant list. Just to let you guys know, if you guys would like to see if you are a good candidate to donate a kidney, you guys go to tgh.org/living kidney donor. If you guys would want, I will actually put the link to the form in the chat as well. But thank you very much to everybody. And by the way, look, if you guys want to know, I think some people said that we have to know your birthday. The same one as Kwame Ture, but it's just 1984. And then you guys see my last name there. So you guys have it there. So thank you very much. Water your plants, water yourselves, leave the world better than you found it. Do all the things if you got them. And also do mutual aid, because there's a lot of people who are disabled and elderly. They're going to be suffering in the very near future. I may be one of the people that may need some mutual aid. Who knows? But anyways, take care, everybody. Mwah. Forehead kisses. I will see you guys in the next one. Be sure to tune in. It's on my channel this Tuesday. I have a guest coming on. I actually discovered him on Savvy's channel. And so he'll be here. Theo Wilson will be joining me. He was also part of the RFK Jr. campaign. So that's going to be interesting. I'll see you guys later. Have a great day.